This mutation is called Negative Reinforcement and it is being played on Parcel. We have two mutators active. We have Fatal Attraction and we have Avenger. Oh dear. Okay, so Fatal Attraction is probably one of the most annoying mutators because it basically means you can take your hands off the keyboard and just watch as you lose control of your entire army. Avenger will just make enemy units stronger, and if you are not paying attention, you will find that your army gets shredded by a very big fat hybrid. So it's very important to make sure you do not end up getting wrecked by Amon's army. Now, on this mission, Alarak does have a viable fast expand, but because of the Avenger mutator, you don't really want to... You kind of want to be careful when you go ahead and you do this because it can get very tricky and very annoying. The other thing to also note is because you're up against a Zerg composition, you unfortunately do not have the luxury of being able to do a fast expand because Zerg compositions have these defense bots, that little bots that walk around the map. Those defense bots can actually aggro your Nexus because they have no leashing distance. And you will end up losing your expansion as a result of here. You can see Alarak is starting to lure enemy units into the toxic nest, which is a little bit of a problem, but I think for the most part though it has been okay. Abathur is still not luring anything. One thing you can use for luring is the Spore Crawler. The Spore Crawler is a really great unit to lure enemies into these nests, but a little bit of help here from Alarak, and now he's going to start building up the... how strangely kind of you! This was a game that was played live while I was streaming, but there we go. So there might have been some interesting conversations that may have been taking place, but unfortunately I don't think those videos are available anymore. So there we go. And now we are going to see what is going to be happening next. So for the most part there is a little bit of biomass there. It's these defense bots that I was talking about earlier. Those things can end up aggroing your Nexus and you will end up losing them. But there we go, that defense bot ends up suiciding itself onto that toxic nest. Now Alarak is going to be trying to climb up that tech tree because going up for the ascents is going to be very important. Getting a good number of ascents is going to be very useful for Alarak. This mission is probably one of the better ones to also get these ascendants on. The main objective and the bonus objective are both targetable by these ascendants, so you'll end up being able to wipe them out very quickly. Now Alarak is good to go. He can put down his Ascendant Archive. Alarak is just going to go ahead, pick up some of these parts, just get this timer up, and now we have the next attack that will be coming up. And Alarak and the extra roach are in position, good to go. Unfortunately, this is a ground composition. There's a little bit of a pick here. Alarak is well aware of that. Just going to weaken these things a little bit because there is going to be a lot of Avenger stacks here onto these roaches, and you can see how these roaches actually end up rebuilding up their HP. So weakening these units up so they get one shot by the nests is going to be kind of important here. And now we have a good number of... Okay, so a total of 83 biomass has been dropped, which means Abathur can't actually get his ultimate evolution out just yet, so he's just a little bit away. Alarak is going to go ahead and push in while the next stage of his macro is going to be building up, so he's going to be putting down his Ascendant Archives, and once he gets his Ascendants out, it will be terrible. But again, very annoying to have the Fatal Attraction mutator here. Alarak is going to move in and just try to one-shot all these units with a Destruction Wave. Just need to get the parts and just stall this mission for the early stages while he can get his army out. And Alarak, once Abathur gets his ultimate evolution out, it should not be terrible. So there is a total of 104 biomass that has been dropped so far. So that is the key for Abathur. He knows exactly how much he needs to get his next set out. And I don't know what are some of these roaches. One of the things that can happen also is Fatal Attraction can interfere with Abathur's biomass farming. Because when you kill this unit, the rest of the roaches get dropped next to it as well, and it will end up getting pulled into the biomass ball, and they might end up stealing the biomass from the roach that actually wants to become an ultimate evolution. The Alarak is slowly using Destruction Wave to keep the enemy units away, and now he has to go ahead and engage this next attack wave. And so far, no ascendants are out yet, but Alarak is getting up getting all the upgrades that he needs to make sure these ascendants are able to deal a lot of damage. So you can see here, Ravager has probably picked up a little bit of biomass here. The biomass is hard. And getting the biomass when you have the Fatal Attraction is very difficult because the biomass ends up getting split up on your entire army. And unfortunately, you need to have a little bit of an army here, because if you are trying to build up your biomass on a single roach, that roach will get pulled into the enemy units and will end up dying. So we have Photon Overcharge here. You can see just the amount of you just see the amount of damage that these things are able to soak up. And now Alarak is good to go. This next side is they are having a little bit of fun getting pulled off by Fatal Attraction, but it does get really annoying at some point. Again, we have 2 minutes left on the timer, and now the train has spawned, but I think the commanders are probably going to ignore that train because there is not enough time. Unfortunately, Alarak does get picked off here. No supplicants to keep Alarak alive, but not too big of a deal because now the first warp and of his tenants are out, and that will allow Alarak to be able to deal with this next hybrid as soon as they go ahead and pick out some of these parts. Abathur on this side is just slowly taking, just pushing through here with the Ravager and his Roach. I'm not really sure for why the addition of the Ravager. I'm assuming it's just to provide a little bit of extra splash damage to this area. Oh, it's to provide a little bit of range as well to the attacks, so you don't end up getting pulled in by Fatal Attraction. Unfortunately, not very effective of a strategy over here. Alarak just has to make sure these Ascendants do not get picked off, because Fatal Attraction will pull your Ascendants towards the enemy forces, and those things will automatically aggro your Ascendants. So you want to make sure that you have a good number of strong Ascendants before you go ahead and push into enemy bases here. So now we have a Brula Scout for Abathur. So the Brula will be able to allow Abathur to clean up this expansion and also pick up a few more parts as well in the process. And there is a thing here to try and deal with a bonus objective. I don't think the bonus objective can be done because Alarak does not have photon cannons in position, or photon overcharges in position. So you put down some pylons. I normally put down the pylons on this side here, and I can overcharge these pylons and go ahead and take out the train with just pure overcharges. But right now, the goal is to make sure that enough parts picked up, because the commanders are running short of time. There are a few psionic orbs get thrown down here, trying to just take out these hydralisks without getting pulled by Fatal Attraction. Unfortunately, it's not enough. Alarak is in front right now. Take this out. It takes out an expansion as well here. Abathur is on here as well, so they decide to flip around into the expansion. Unfortunately, these locusts also do get used by Fatal Attraction, so that is a bit of a problem. The attack wave now has landed on Abathur's base, but it definitely comes down to try and help deal with this side. Will this expansion survive? Unfortunately, the expansion does end up getting taken out by these units because of the Avenger stacks that these units have. And that's one of the things that makes the Avenger really, really nasty. But Alarak has to be really careful with how he chooses to engage attack waves, because again, his ascents are not very strong. He doesn't have that very many. He has to make sure that they do not end up getting picked up, because if you lose your ascents in the early stages of the game, you're going to get reset, and you're going to have a really, really bad time. Now, we have the Ballast has gone to go ahead and engage this hybrid, and Alarak is going to wait for a little bit of time before he goes to pick up the next set of Ballast parts here. So, is he going to go ahead and engage? I can't remember what I did here. And they're going to go ahead and they're going to go take out this hybrid. Again, has to be very careful with the Ascents. The Ascents are so precious. You don't want to end up losing them for like through normal attacks and stuff. So Alarak is going to be careful to engage this. So engage here with the Ascents. And he's going to use Mind Blast onto this hybrid. You can see the amount of damage that these Ascendants have, and there are not that many Ascendants right now. And this hybrid just ends up getting just melted by the Ascendant Mind Blast here. There's a few folks here. Now the hybrid is going down. And now the next stage of the mission has begun. And again, once Alarak has a good number of Ascendants warped in, it won't be terrible. And he's just going to do another warping right now of some Havocs. These Havocs are going to be very useful in keeping Alarak's Ascendants away from the enemies that he's killing. So the idea is use a force field in front, and then use your Ascendant's psionic orb ability, and you end up killing stuff. And the Ascendants just get pulled into the Havoc's force field, and that will keep them alive because they cannot actually pass through. So again, Ascendants just getting ramped up a little bit, and now Alarak will be good to go. So again, there's a little bit of pull off here. You can see the Havocs have casted their force field abilities, and now you can see here, like one Ascendant does end up getting pulled off, but the rest of these things are safe here. few Ascendants in the back line, providing a little bit more extra damage. I think only one Ascendant was lost in that, and that is the important part here. Just making sure keep your Ascendants alive here. So that was a little bit unfortunate, but that's okay. One Ascendant being lost is kind of expected, given the fact that you are dealing with Fatal Attract. But now a few more Ascendants go in to join the mix. And Alarak now is up to 13 Ascendants, and he's going to wait now for the Balius to start triggering before he goes to push into enemy bases. Because again, you do not want to lose those Ascendants. It's so easy to lose them because they have such a high aggro priority with Amon's AI. Abathur is on this side with a bunch of Brutalist. Those Brutalists are pretty much invincible right now through Fatal Attraction. The Symbiote is causing a few problems because the Symbiote is aggroing these Locusts. Just give me this Brutalist back, and the Brutalist cannot join his buddies over here. The other Brutalist is like, you know what, I'm just gonna go and help you out. And we start to clean up this area here and just picking up some of these other parts as well. Now there's a train ready, and again, another bunch of Havocs. And you can see here just the value that these things can provide. And again, these Ascendants actually end up surviving, I think. Yeah, no Ascendants were lost in that engage because you can actually keep these Ascendants alive through the Havoc ability. And it is one of the very few times you want to use a Havoc force field. These things can help Fatal Attraction, help you deal with Fatal Attraction. We have a few more Supplicants now to go warped in, and another bunch of Mind Blasts onto this train, and this train will end up getting cleaned up by these Ascendants here. So unfortunately, the Ascendants do get pulled into this enemy camp here, but not too many units. So I don't think there will be any losses of Ascendants on this. But one Mulist is dealing a little bit of damage. Yeah, these Ascendants end up surviving, and yeah, for the most part, Alarak is good to go now. His Ascendants are starting to grow. You can see the glowy, like once they start glowing red, you know you're at a point where your Ascendants are reasonably strong. But again, the Ascendants have to be fed. They have to be constantly fed by these. By Alarak's army here of Supplicants. Balius is dealing with this hybrid Dominator, but this Dominator is going to end up killing off a lot. It's actually going to end up killing this. Did it end up killing the Balius? Yeah, it ended up killing the Balius, unfortunately. This hybrid Dominator ended up growing. But again, the enemy forces, the allied forces, are pushing through these enemy defenses. Now, for the most part, this has been cleared. Alarak again has to be really careful. These Ascendants do not have, there are not that many Supplicants nearby, which is also a bit of a problem. And now this is very unfortunate because this means the hybrid is going to start spawning. This hybrid is going to start spawning attack waves, which is going to be very problematic for Alarak. One of these Ascendants does end up getting caught out in this part, but yeah, one Ascendant does end up going down to this, but Alarak has to try and push out of the way, and this is why Alarak is running away right now, because Alarak has to deal with this, and there's also an attack wave on this side of the map, and actually no overcharge here, but I don't think the overcharge is necessary for this. But Alarak has to be really careful, because if he engages too close, these Ascendants are going to end up getting wiped by the attack forces here. So, and remember that there is Avenger as well, so not only do you get pulled into an attack force, but this attack force is also much stronger. And now Alarak has another bunch of Ascendants and some Havocs ready, I believe. Yeah, so 4 Havocs were lost, unfortunately, on the site. But again, Abathur has to go ahead and deal with this one Lurker that is harassing a little bit. I think there are 2 Lurkers on the site. Fortunately, there's no detection on this point. Alarak has to go ahead and clean up this hybrid. Just be very careful. A few Psionic Orbs get dropped to end up cleaning up this attack force. And now this hybrid is just absolutely massive. It has a total of 16,500 shield, and I don't know how much HP was there on that hybrid. But there we go, some mirror images now on the hybrids, and that will end up getting cleaned up. Well, one of the good things is though this hybrid actually does not keep its Avenger stack. Oh, there we go. No, it does. The 16,500 HP and 16,500 shield. That is a lot of HP on this hybrid right now. It's just, look at this attack speed. That is just insane. Now there's another attack wave that Alarak has to go ahead and engage with. Again, he has to be really careful. This is bad. Yes, this is actually kind of bad because it's very difficult to engage this. And Alarak is, the reason why Alarak is reluctant to engage here is because if it spawns the attack wave, Alarak is going to lose all those Ascendants. And you have to be very careful with how you poke and prod into this to make sure you don't end up losing. And now this attack wave is just absolutely terrifying. They're just going to start attacking here. Triple overcharge comes down. onto these gateways. And notice how the gateways are used for the overcharge and not the pylon. The gateways have more HP than the pylon, and the gateways are also expendable. So Alarak he's not too worried if his gateways end up dying. So it's okay if these Ultralisks end up focus firing down these this gateway. But you can see here the overcharge is actually enough to keep this alive. Alarak had to pull off his entire army, but now he does another warpen, and now his ascendants are actually really strong. This is a 10 stack ascendant right here. You can see that by the amount of shields, so you just take a look. If your shield is at 10,000 or 1,000 shield, then you know that you are at a 10 stack ascendant. There's 3 minutes and 15 seconds left on the timer. It's not terrible, but the commanders will have to try and rush here. Unfortunately, the Fatal Attraction has pulled off some of Alarak's probes here. Alarak is flowing a lot of resources, so it's not too important. You will have to rebuild some of these gateways, but right now Alarak's goal is to go ahead and pick up some of these parts that were left off by Abathur. So Abathur should have cleaned up a good number of these this area here, so there should be very few units left. Abathur is going to start pushing to this side. Unfortunately, Abathur has lost a significant chunk of his army, and again, he has to be really careful with how he chooses to engage. Pulls back a little bit so he can counter the Fatal Attraction pull. So pulls back, Fatal Attraction will pull him back into position. Again, really careful because these units have a very, very high aggro priority. There is a hybrid that is attacking this. Again, Mind Blast onto the hybrid, ends up wiping the hybrid out, and now the Zerglings are done. When you are dealing with more dangerous enemy bases, you will need to put down these force fields, as is seen over here. So two of the supplicants you end up getting pulled, but you can see how devastating that would have been if the ascendants had actually gone pulled into that attack wave or into that enemy base here. So the next hybrid is ready to spawn, and there is a bunch of Leviathans that are being pulled by Fatal Attraction on this side. Very, very difficult to deal with from Abathur's part, because the only thing you can actually do is go for a mass swarm host. Might be okay. You can borrow the swarm host and make sure you don't have to deal with any nastiness here. But Alarak has a good number of ascendants, and he's up to 16 ascendants, so he will be able to provide himself with a reasonably sized army. Those gateways are being replaced now, and those workers have been sent back to mine as well. Alarak will be putting down a few more force fields, and now he's going to cast his psionic orbs on this side. Unfortunately, the Ultralisks are considered massive units, so they just walk right over these force fields. But for the most part, the damage has been done because the ascendants have been able to evaporate pretty much the entire attack wave. Unit losses there so far. Alarak has only lost 3 ascendants. 7 Havocs, unfortunately, have been picked off, and 25 Supplicants. Again, Supplicants are not really much of a problem. Alarak is flowing a lot of resources, so is Abathur. Abathur flowing about 10,000 minerals right now, but again, this base is going to be the more difficult part to take out, because Alarak will need to make sure his ascendants don't get pulled into this base, because if it doesn't really matter if these ascendants have 10 stacks, 10 power, not power, the power overwhelming stacks, yeah, 10 power overwhelming stacks, it doesn't really matter. If an ascendant gets caught into this enemy base, it is going to be game over. So Alarak is going to be using now, I believe, the no cooldown technique to start wiping this enemy base here. But unfortunately, that was not a wise decision, because there is not really much ability for micro, because a Fatal Attraction cancels your skill cast. So now both the enemy forces are going to be caught into this entire area here, which is going to be a little bit of a problem. A few more Psionic Orbs do go down, and remember that these Ascendants are at 10 stacks, so they deal those one Psionic Orb even going off deals a lot of damage, leaving a few hybrids alive. And now we have the Deathly cooldown that with Teleport that uses it just to interrupt the Fatal Attraction. And there's one more time as well that's being used just to make sure that these things don't get caught off too much into the enemy bases here. And there we go. That area has been cleared. The Ballius is going to go ahead and try and take out this side, which is going to be which is another side that needs to be picked off. But again, Alarak is not interested in engaging that side very much. He does not really want to lose those Ascendants. If you lose those Ascendants, that's pretty much game over. So now there is a preliminary set of force field to get dropped onto this hybrid, because he knows that the hybrid is going to start dropping this attack wave. So there we go, attack wave gets dropped here. Unfortunately, those that attack wave gets dropped just as the force fields do expire, but now Alarak doesn't really care, because he has a good number of Ascendants who can end up cleaning up this side. And Alarak is just going to have to dodge this hybrid by himself now. Abathur, unfortunately, is getting pulled off on here. going to go ahead and try and deal with this side. The attack wave is already made it towards Abathur's base here, which is going to be a bit of a problem. But Alarak has a very, very strong Ascends right now, and he's going to be able to deal a lot of damage to this. And now we have another spawn of enemy units here, and Alarak has to try and focus fire down this hybrid because unfortunately his Ascendants have not been backed up by a bunch of supplicants. There is a stasis that goes down to keep this alive, and unfortunately Abathur's base here has been completely wiped by that attack wave. But again, like I said, Alarak has his Ascendants, and he will be focusing down this hybrid right now with a Mind Blast. And there's 175 HP left, but the hybrid ends up getting picked off by the last set of Ascendants. And that is GG.